You can't outrun it. It's there when the room falls silent, when the voices fade, when the lights dim, and it's just you. It's not the world outside. It's the shadow within, the weight of your own self pressing down. Maybe it's a night alone, the clock ticking too loudly, and your mind dredging up every mistake you thought you'd buried. Maybe it's a day when no one's around, and the silence feels like a spotlight on everything you're not. Successful enough, strong enough, whole enough. This isn't the loneliness of empty spaces, it's the heaviness of carrying your own shadow, your doubts, your regrets, the parts of you that whisper you're falling short. You've felt it. The job you didn't get still stings. The fight you lost still echoes. The dream you let slip away still haunts you. The world keeps moving, but alone, you're stuck with this. Your shadow, looming, unrelenting. It's not a stranger. It's you. And in that stark, solitary moment, it's all you can see. That shadow doesn't just sit there. It pulls. It's a gravity you feel when no one's around to distract you. You're alone in your apartment, the TV off, and it tugs you down. You're not enough. You messed up. Why even try? It's the voice that replays the time you froze in a meeting, the friend you let down, the chance you didn't take. Maybe you're scrolling through old texts, seeing how things used to be, and the weight sinks deeper. They're gone, and it's your fault. Or you're staring at a blank page, a project you swore you'd start, but the shadow whispers, you'll fail anyway. It's heavy. Heavier than the daily grind, heavier than the bills on the table. You want to shake it off, turn on music, call someone, drown it out with noise. But alone, there's nowhere to hide. The pull of the dark is real. It's your own mind turning against you, dragging you into a corner you can't escape. But here's the catch. That weight isn't here to bury you, it's here to show you what you're made of. So you sit with it, the weight of your own shadow, and no one's coming to lift it. This isn't a team sport, it's a solo fight. You can't pay someone to fix it, can't talk it away, can't wait for a hero to swoop in. It's you versus you, and it's brutal. You sit there, maybe on the edge of your bed, maybe pacing the floor, and feel it. The urge to give in, to let the shadow win, to stay small. But then something stirs, a flicker, a spark, a quiet, not yet. You force yourself to stand even when your legs shake. You grab a pen even when your hand doubts. You breathe even when your chest feels tight. This is the fight, not loud, not pretty, but yours. It's the single mom who cries after the kids are asleep but gets up anyway. It's the man who stares at his failures in the mirror but clocks in the next day. It's you right now, refusing to let the shadow call the shots. You don't outsource this, you face it alone because no one else knows the weight like you do. That fight strips you down. And under the weight, you find something. Truth. The shadow is heavy because it's real. It's not some vague gloom. It's your story, your scars, your unfiltered self. Alone, you see it clearly. The fear of failing that's kept you stuck, the guilt you've carried for years, the version of you you've hidden from the world. Maybe it's the choice you regret, staying quiet when you should have spoken, walking away when you should have stayed. Maybe it's the dream you've starved, too scared to feed it, too tired to try. The weight of your own shadow isn't random. It's the load of what matters, what hurts, what you've ignored. And in solitude, there's no running. You unpack it. You sit with it, feel it, name it. It's not comfortable, it's sharp, like a blade cutting through lies. But that truth? That's the ground you build on. Because once you know the shadow, you know what you're fighting for and what you're fighting against. And here's where it turns. The weight doesn't break you, it builds you. Every time you face that shadow alone, every time you push back, you lift a little more. It's not instant, it's slow, gritty, earned. You're not shrugging it off, you're growing strong enough to carry it. Think of the nights you've wrestled it, the fear you named and kept going, the doubt you stared down and worked through, the silence you filled with one small step. That's strength. Not the loud kind, but the kind that holds. It's the student who fails, studies alone, and passes later. It's the worker who clocks out, sits with their flaws, and clocks in tougher. It's you. forcing yourself to rise when the shadow pulls, to act when it screams, stop. Alone, you forge it, a power that doesn't need a crowd, a resilience that doesn't bend. The weight of your own shadow doesn't lighten, but you get stronger until it's not a burden anymore. It's a badge. As that strength grows, something shifts. You find balance. The shadow's still there, always will be, but it's not the boss of you. Solitude becomes the space where you make peace with it. You're alone, maybe walking under streetlights, and you feel it. The weight is heavy, but you're steady. You don't hate it anymore, you don't fear it. You carry it, your flaws, your fights, your truth, like a soldier carries gear. Maybe it's the regret you've made peace with, the dream you've started chasing, the version of you you've stopped hiding. The echo of the dark still hums, but now there's another sound. Your own rhythm, your own pace. This balance isn't perfect, it's real. Days when the shadow looms, days when you stand taller. But alone, you learn to hold both, the weight and the will. Because it's not about erasing the shadow, it's about walking with it, knowing it's yours, knowing you're strong enough to bear it. So you've faced it, the weight of your own shadow, fought it, found its truth, lifted it, balanced it, and now you step forward, not free of it, but free with it. Alone, you've turned the dark into something else. Light. It's in the way you move now. Calm where you were frantic, sure where you were shaky. You're not the one who crumbles under the load. You're the one who carries it and keeps going. Maybe it's the work you do, steady despite the doubts. Maybe it's the words you say, true because you've heard your own. Maybe it's the life you live, bold because you've faced the worst alone. The world might not see the fight, but they'll see the glow, the quiet power, and wonder where it came from. But you know, it came from the shadow, from the weight, from the solitude where you wrestled and rose. So stand tall, ladies and gentlemen. The weight of your own shadow isn't your fall, it's your fire. And when you carry it alone and unbroken, you light the way for yourself and for anyone brave enough to follow.